You are eating insects every day, and now we are gonna find out why with Flora and Taranow.
Thanks.
Just a quick introduction to the video. I flew from Indianapolis to Texas to visit my friend's black soldier fly farm and find out how are these insects farmed and why are we eating them. Okay, so we are at Simpton.
Welcome.
Welcome.
We're so glad to have you.
Yeah, and now for the tour.
Let's start us out at the beginning of the process. These are freshly hatched neonates, which hatch out of their eggs. You can't tell right now, but each little tiny grain of rice right there is a larva, hoping to become a big, bad, beautiful fly one day. It's fine. It's fine. I guess we'll come back to this because that's the finished kind of product at the end of the line. Okay, so over here we've had a day of sifting. This is how much frass we produce. It's actually a really good fertilizer.
Well, this is all Frass?
Yeah, and it's hot. It's bioactive right now, but this is all, like, it's a really good, like, substrate level. It's high in nitrogen. The NPK levels are out of this world, man. It is the fertilizer of the future. Come on in. We got the screens in case we have any hatchlings that we didn't catch. And also to keep houseflies out. They're our biggest pest.
Do they compete? Somehow?
Yeah, I think that the houseflies really like laying eggs in the pans where we grow the soldier flies because they like the food, they know it's safe.
Would make sense.
Yeah, but it creates a huge problem for us because the larvae of houseflies will hatch in about 2 days and become adult flies. So we send out the larvae expecting them to be like a 2 to 3 week shelf life. People get them and flies fly out of the cups. It's a no-go.
Yeah, that happened to me back in Germany in my trash.
There you go. It happens. So this is the wet feed we feed them. It's just grains, wet grains.
What grains?
Wheat, alfalfa, and corn.
Okay.
So they're vegetarians.
Nice.
And here we have our most adult flies. They're in our big pans. We grow them in a variety of sizes, but these are gonna be full grown tomorrow. They're almost at the end of their eating cycle. So we have all these are gonna be ready tomorrow. And they definitely hide under the surface.
How many larvae is there in one of these?
Right now, there should be 80K per black pan.
80,000?
80,000.
Yeah.
Just in those big black pans. We have less, like, as we go down the week. So these are younger pans. You can tell that their food isn't as incorporated. So they're very, very small. Let's see if we can find some. Very small. I see a few. You gotta zoom in, but they're there.
They are wiggling.
This will be, let's see. These were made on Friday, so these are 3 days old.
Okay.
And as they continue to grow, they process more of the food, and you'll see more of an incorporation, and they'll get bigger. These are what I would call our medium-sized larvae. So these will be large on 3 days from now. They're in the middle of their eating cycle. But it's just more of this. More.
So how long does it take for the flies to get through this room?
So we start growing for Monday orders, which it is today. We grow them 6 days before on the Tuesday of the week before. So everything that we've sifted today, which you don't see here because we've sifted through it, was grown on Tuesday of last week. So those adults were grown last Wednesday. So that would be, 5 days ago? They'll be 6 days old when they're harvested.
Okay. What's the difference between the contents of this tray and those ones over there?
There's really nothing other than the amount of larvae that we have in them. So this tray is about 2/3 of the size of this tray. These are our heavy duty trays. So they have more. And actually I was wrong. So these are the ones with 80,000. The other one had 60,000. The only difference is really the amount that we're growing and, you know, space saving. So we do our days with like heavy amounts of larvae to ship out with these pans.
What's the physics of them being here in the middle, like on the surface and here?
They don't typically eat on the surface. So if I see larvae on the surface, it's usually not for a good reason. Like right now I just flip them around, so it's okay. But larvae on the surface are an example that something might be wrong. You might have disease in your colony. Usually the dead ones are the ones that float, just like in It, Stephen King. But they stay underneath, they're eating the food, and they're really staying as a larval mass, because as larvae, they typically stick together and they process food like in units, in these hot units. And just the warmer it is where they'll be. So they'll be underneath every time, and then on the edges. They really like the edges. When they're about ready to harvest though, the frass, which is the excrement of the bugs, it gets pretty dry and kind of like flaky.
Yep.
This is all usable as fertilizer, but also it's an indicator for when they're done consuming what was the food, because it starts out in these chunks and very wet, and you can tell like even the color, like this hasn't been processed like to the level of this deep brown.
Yeah.
So they'll start yellow, and that's kind of how you can tell when they're ready to harvest and when they're full grown. You don't want to harvest before they're done eating, because they're weaker at that, like they're not good for shipping. They'll like get overheated if they're not just like fully like at a place where, hey, we've ate everything, it's time to go be shipped and not be near food. They'll still be chasing that bag, you know. And also really miserable to sift out food that hasn't been digested yet. Like that isn't this nice texture, because then you've got clumps and undigested food that just is miserable for the sifting part of it all.
Why do they like the edges though?
I don't know. They have these weird habits where they go to the edges, and if we didn't do this dry moat around, like we do the dry feed with the wet feed in the middle, if we didn't do it, the wet larvae, if not like dried and stopped, they'll crawl out the edges and do this like World War Z zombie stacking of worms on worms, and then they'll escape. Once we had our AC breakdown, and
Texas.
Yes.
Texas had its entire electrical grid breakdown.
Yeah.
It wasn't just our AC.
Yeah, so we got here, no AC. They were humid, so humid, like there was nothing to stop the humidity.
Yep.
And we got to the rearing room, and it was just the walls were covered in larvae. You see little snail trails, and they had gotten out, and they're all over the floor, and they're all over the walls, and they'll just climb up. So we do this dry moat to try to prevent that from happening. But I think their behavior is, you know, go to the edges, escape, and that would explain why they go to the edges.
So how big was the investment for this whole operation?
So we started by running out of a lab, and we were doing the research on black soldier fly larvae. And at the time it was free because we were running out of the lab. There was no rent. Our first big expenditure for our business was renting out our first warehouse space here. Okay. And that was about $2,000 a month for 2,000 square feet. And, you know, then our first employee came like a while later. And from there, now we have 9 employees. So the bigger you get, like the more you're gonna have to spend. So now we have three warehouse units totaling $4,500 a month in rent. Mm-hmm. We have 9 employees, and the amount that we have spent in like revving up the space for the rearing room and the air control. Mm-hmm. I'd say last year alone, building a new rearing room with temperature control, it cost about $20K.
If you were to make a new farm with all the things, not counting...
No rent, okay.
Well, Okay, no rent and no like employee costs. Just the equipment.
I think you would want, I mean, it's pretty low as far as what you need to actually grow the pans of larvae. So you need sterilite pans and racks, probably totaling under $1,000 to like start production. The temperature control is where your money will start to be lost. I think that
you mean like on the unit or on the...
I think it's not about the unit as much as it is about making the rearing room, the place where they grow, able to withstand any outside elements or changes in temperature. Mm-hmm. So you really want to insulate. You want an exhaust. You want a dehumidifier and a humidifier, just because you need that humidity to be constant. And then you'll want, depending on where you live. I'm in Texas, so we have 2 AC units. Mm-hmm. In case one fails, we have a backup, you know. But I even think that Texas, the last summer, that was not enough. I was considering getting a 6-ton unit that is about another $11,000 that will come with me wherever I go. But then you're gonna want the heat control in the winter when it's cold. Yep. So you're looking at about, just for temperature control, you're looking at like, I mean, between $5,000 to $10,000, depending on like how well you really need to insulate from the outside elements. Mm-hmm. However, you can do an outside greenhouse. If you're in a temperate region, you could do an outside greenhouse and not have to really worry as much about keeping, you know, the temperature right, as long as you have the greenhouse and that natural humidity. And that's just for adults, I'm thinking about. But I think in any condition you want to grow the larvae. If you want a stable product, you want to grow the larvae inside for just like stable production.
Okay. And how much does it cost to run it?
The business or the temperature?
The temperature. And the humidity.
So our AC breaks down twice a summer, and that costs about $1,000 each time to fix. And our AC people love us, though. I tip them well. Like just month to month, our bills are not like too bad. The installation was the worst part. It was about, you know, $10K for installation, but month to month, I'd say like our AC bill is just like, I don't know, $250, $300 a month. For
the whole operation?
For the rearing room side, yeah. Okay. So those 2 units, yeah, that'll be about 300 plus like another 200 over here, 500 total, 3 units. The temperature control is definitely the hardest part of the entire business, though, and fidgeting with it. Like the money is one thing, but the constant paying attention to it and the constant like problems with it and fixing those problems, and kind of, there's some things that like I'll never understand why the larvae didn't grow, because the conditions were right, but then the larvae won't grow right. And so there's some things that are just like left up to the fates. I don't know, but you can do everything right, and it's not guaranteed because they're quite finicky little.
What do they do in nature?
It's a great question. They usually like inhabit like trash piles, and they do like this, but typically in a mound. And their behavior is much more like go to the borders, go to the edges when they pupate. And we actually utilize that behavior to make a structure where when they start to pupate, they go up a ramp because they really want to escape the larva mass. And then they fall off the edge and we collect them as pupae, which is cool. I don't have that machine here. High tech though. Our newest ones would be these, which are, Friday. These were made Friday. But they really do start very much with like the wet in the middle and then the dry on the outside. And here's like a big example. They're just starting to be processing. I think they're really tiny. I still haven't found any. Oh, yeah, They're here,
there's one.
little babies. So this is your 80K at the beginning.
What's the mortality?
It depends season to season and kind of really it depends with the weather. But we try to aim for an 80% minimum survival rate from our initial neonate additions to the pans. But it can go down to 30, which will really affect, and it's all affected by the outside conditions. And like some days, some pans specifically will just get 30%. And we're kind of screwed.
I would assume.
Yeah, we're kind of screwed for like demand. It's hard to like kind of, and it's been hard to kind of predict what demand will be because you're working a week in advance of everything.
How big is the market?
I think the market is as big as it, I think the growth potential is endless because more and more people have been getting into reptiles, I think since 2020, but also just reptiles are really like unspoken, very common animal market. It's the third most popular, like bearded dragons are the third most popular pet after cats and dogs.
Really?
Yes, in America. And so I was shocked by it too. I really wasn't in the reptile world until I started selling to them, but it's a huge market. And I think it only has like unlimited growth. Like it can grow as much as it wants to because lizards are a great pet and there's always kids and like always the need for pets. So it's endless. I think the chicken market also, like you can get into with the dried ones, but they like the dried ones more than the live. But there's the chickens, there's other exotics. I was shocked to see that hedgehogs like them. There's the turtles. I don't know. It's just endless. These are the pupae. So these are the worms that we grow all the way into. That's not one of them. These are like worms. Yeah. So these are worms that we let grow all the way into flies. I'm looking for a good example. So we basically take our biggest worms. Like these are worms you probably did not see in your tour so far. Our biggest worms that are the meatiest, and we just let them grow until they turn into pupae, which I think we've already added. So here's some pupae. They turn black and hard. Here's some pupae. So we'll sift these out of their substrate, but the black ones, as they get black and they'll get hard, once they stop moving and get really stiff, that's when we know that they're about to pupate and emerge as adult flies. And that's when we'll add them into our adult fly cage to get more eggs, to get more neonates, to get more worms.
How long does this whole process take from the neonate or from the egg to this stage?
So the neonates, till a large worm, like I said, is about 6 days. They need about 2 extra weeks. So 3 weeks total in the larval stage before they'll start to be pre-pupae or pupae. They're just starting to stop moving, which means that we'll want to move them to the cage within the next couple days.
Yep.
Good, I'm glad we had a pupae pan for you that wasn't gross. Let's see. These are pupating too. Good.
What's this machine?
This is a sifter, and it'll rotate back and forth like this. And it's really cool in that here are all the different levels. Each little sleeve will put out a different size based off of the mesh size that is in that compartment. So this is a great way to sift without the help of people and to size out your larvae. Right now we have it in pieces because we're trying to get it off the pallet because we need to bolt it to the cement because it rocks too much. Yeah. Believe me when I say it's cool though.
Well, I guess I know what this contraction is.
Yeah, this was Monday's pan, so this is what they sifted today.
Can you buy it like this, or did you make it?
We definitely bought the parts from my business partner, Spring, and they work fine. It's just not showing you that right now. It really doesn't matter what angle, as long as the wheels are rolling. But yeah, that's how we put the pans in and out. It's pretty nice little. but it's heavy. Like this is made of metal. It's not PVC.
Well, I mean,
but
it has to carry the trays.
Yeah, the longer we've gone and the more larvae we're growing, the less we can use these smaller pans. Not only because they grow less, but also the consistency. And you want to have that consistency and size throughout the whole thing. So it's just easier to grow them in the bigger pans. And that's that.
So here's the
dry feed, the wet feed. Yes, this is the dry. It's the dry. And this is for the moats around it, but also like, this is what we make the wet feed out of. This is that blend, alfalfa, corn, and wheat. Corn for energy, alfalfa for protein, and the wheat is for structure, just so they have enough cellulose to climb on and don't just die in this wet mix.
And it's real dusty.
It's real dusty. We got masks, but not for you.
So how much of this do you order per order?
We order a lot. This is the, this is it. We order it, I think, four tons at a time in 50-pound bags.
How often?
Every 2 months, I think.
So 4 tons every 2 months?
Yeah.
Wait, what tons?
2,000 pounds. So this is basically the sifted product after being sifted out of their frass. They're separating themselves right now, but this is the mediums. Mm-hmm. This is 80K worms, dude. This is my estimate of what 80K mediums looks like. This is what 5,000 mediums looks like.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I'm right, 80K. Yeah, so I know that it sounded like I'm making up numbers, but we actually do record all of the numbers of the weights and stuff that we add into each pan. So we do the math and we actually get our survival from all of that. It's not my job. So now we go to let's go to the fly cage.
But this is the sifting room. Yeah.
This is where everybody has their little station. And this is where, we keep our cups and we do our cupping. This is where we add the substrate that I was talking about. It's in here.
The secret formula.
Secret formula. You can see that it's really, really beautiful stuff. Does a great job. This is where they sift. So here's a pan with the frass. And each day when we're ready for harvest, we'll get our sifter and just manually do our sifting of the worms, get them away from the frass.
Do they like it?
They love it.
It's like a roller coaster.
They love it. You just want to keep those dancing worms on your plate. And you've got this beautiful product on the other side that you will take the weight of. You'll weigh about 10, take a sample size, and that's how you're going to get your number for what your product should weigh when you get to 500. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have standards, so our larges have to fit. They have to be, 10 has to be more than a gram. So we have 1.46 grams for 10 of them. The way you're going to do the math is with 1.46, each one is roughly 0.146 grams, and you'll multiply that by the 500 that you need in the cup. Whatever that equals, it should be, 38, and then you'll weigh out your 38. And we're almost there, too much. And you've got your 38, then you'll get your substrate, and then you'll get your lid, and you have made an official Simton product.
Perfect.
It's not small, it's large. So at the bottom, we have the dead ones. They only last about a day or two. Then we'll want to vacuum them out. We use just a shop vac to vacuum them out. Yeah. We have our egg trap. That's those popsicle sticks in the middle. And they're stimulated to kind of lay there. They like to put their ovipositors in between the sticks and lay their eggs there. And every other day, we'll collect it and we'll weigh it and see what the weight of eggs is. and then we'll put them in their own little tiny incubation box. And the eggs will hatch out as neonates onto the floor of the box, and we'll collect them every day. And that is how the whole cycle starts. And this is where the whole cycle ends. So these pupae, the pupae that you saw during the tour will all get moved into this cage and hatch out as flies and hopefully mate and lay eggs. And that is where the cycle repeats.
Why is the plants in there?
So when it's really populous, like when we have a high population, there's not enough surface area on the edges of the cage. So they need the vines just to sit, just to stop moving.
What's that black box?
Humidifier that needs to be filled, but they prefer high humidity. And so the humidifier is always on them.
And what temperature?
Temperature, they just need about room, like between 75 and 85 Fahrenheit.
What's in this black box?
The black is the pupae side. This is where we load them in. When they're about ready to hatch out. As flies, we'll put the pupae pans in here and stack them. They like the dark. And then once they emerge as adult flies, they'll be attracted towards the light side. So they auto-regulate by moving themselves.
So there is actually a hole.
Yeah, they can go out at the top or the bottom, and then they'll go into the light side. Cool. But the pupae like it dark, so that's why the side is dark. Fully develop and emerge healthily.
Those are fly traps?
Yeah, right now we have fruit flies galore, so they're... I just got one. Sometimes we're absolutely subject to pests by making all the right breeding conditions for flies. Other flies are gonna come through. So sticky traps are our friend, but I only like sticky traps up in the air because little geckos and lizards will come, and so I don't do the floor sticky traps. Outside is where we store the frass, which I could show you the ton bags of frass.
You can pick one up for us?
Yeah, they're outside on the side of the parking lot. So these are the orders for the day.
And so you work with Chewy?
Yeah, we're partnered with Chewy. We do the live products for Chewy. And once a week we send their fulfillment centers supplies. But yeah, they buy our live. This is 100 orders for Chewy today. And then our store orders, they come second to Chewy, of course. Lucky us. Yeah, it's a rainy day, so you see some things have gotten pushed over, but this is basically all of the fly frass of the last, 6 months?
Like the whole yard or this bag?
Just all of this, the whole yard, the whole graveyard. So the longer that they sit, the actually better they are as a fertilizer. But this is what's going on inside. You cannot pay me enough to put my hand in there. How much is this? This is 1 ton bags times.
Like 1,500 pounds probably each bag, maybe?
Yes. Yes, because they don't fit a whole ton. It's a lot of frass. We're working on a deal to sell the frass. That's why it's all kind of closed up and somebody wants it. Yeah. Somebody wants this.
Well, we sell it on our website too.
Yeah, and it's a good fertilizer. The longer it sits, so like those are the oldest and they're like 6 months old, and those we regularly soil test them to get their NPK levels. The longer it sits, the better it is. That's what I got. Yeah. Yeah. It's too cold to stay out here and talk.
It is.
It is. It is.
So the reason why you, me, we all eat insects and why the consumption is likely gonna increase massively in the coming years is because they are a great source of animal feed. For example, Lauren sells the larvae to lizard owners, but there are massive insect operations that supply commercial chicken, hog or fish farms. And by the way, feeding insects to livestock is much more sustainable than using fish meal, which is damaging to the global fish population. So you can expect to be eating more and more insects and feel good about it, cause it's in the form of your favorite meat. And this video is supposed to raise awareness about it and about insect farming. Thanks for watching.